Ready? Good evening. The last time I stopped right here in chapter 8, where men were drinking bloody water, judgment. We're in the tribulation period on the chart, and many men were dying from the fact they could not get fresh water. I have said over here that this must not be a worldwide judgment. You see it right here on the chart down low. Here, 1/3 of the rivers over whatever nation the curse may be. I don't think all the world's included. Then 1/3 of the rivers of that special spot where God's judgment falls by a star called Wormwood. Last night we found out that wormwood means bitter. And a weed grew in the Holy Land called wormwood when this was written. And I had said, Mother used to tell me, it's bitter as wormwood, Roy. They will forget that. So I'm going on now to right on in the chapter 8 till I get here. And the fourth angel sounds the trumpet, and 1/3 of the stars were smitten, and 1/3 of the sun was smitten, and 1/3 of the moon was smitten. And I think it'll happen just exactly like my artist drew it all. Now watch. And 1/3 part of the sun was smitten, and 1/3 part of the moon, and 1/3 part of the stars. Watch. Watch it. And the day shone not for 1/3 part of it, and the night likewise. In other words, the days were shortened. I heard a fellow on the air the other day saying that the tribulation period would be shortened. And he was trying to prove it by Daniel and whatever. As a matter of fact, there's not any way to prove that the days will be shortened, the length of time will be shortened. Not any way to prove that. What if I say that for 1/3 part of the day, the sun doesn't shine? And for 1/3 part of the day, the moon doesn't shine. And for 1/3 part of the night, the stars doesn't shine. And that would give the believer in the tribulation period longer to hide from Antichrist and his cohorts, escape from death, run fast enough, get out of the way, God's sympathy with him in darkness in place of daylight. That would make good sense and would go exactly with Matthew 24, verse 22. And except those days be shortened, no flesh could be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. The days, you see, will be shortened. There it is again. Looks like it might be that there's more darkness, both on account of the moon and the stars and the sun. You're thinking about that word elect. I would suppose it would be Jews, because the tribulation period is called Jacob's trouble. And Jacob was a Jew. Jacob's trouble. Of course, the trouble will be on the Gentiles also, but the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Seems to be Jewish, and it's in the book of Matthew, and that certainly is a Jewish book. I'll go on over here to chapter 9. You that got your Bibles out there, chapter 9, ready? All of this is taught from King James. I never owned anything but a King James Bible. I never read much from any Bible except the King James. I prefer it above all others. I own no other. I never preached a sermon in my life from any other but the King James. I think it's more accurate to the Greek than a lot of other translations, well, than any translation, really. And I looked and saw a star fall from heaven. Let me help you with that. I saw a star having fallen. And that's exactly the way the Greek reads. You may check on it and look up and see that I'm right about that. When I'm not, I'll tell you I'm guessing, or I'll tell you we presume. Sometimes I say that to let you know. But the original says the star had fallen or was already fallen. I saw a star, F-A-L-L-E-N. We have it in our Bibles. I saw a star fall as if the star had freshly fallen or was just falling just now, that moment. Not so. What is indicated here is that the star had long, long ago fallen, and now the star is recognized as the devil or Satan. I'll get to it in a moment. I saw a star fall from heaven long ago, long before Adam and Eve, evidently. We think that the devil was a great angel, super, that he had great power, that he had a shining personality, that he had nearly all wisdom, that he was almost everything except divine, and it still is. So far as we know, the fall did not take away his glory as far as shining, as far as mental intellect, as far as the power to subdue, as far as the power to be wicked. As far as we know, that was not taken away from the devil. So he still has a tremendous influence, a tremendous pull, and belongs to the world and the flesh. And don't underestimate the devil. Ready? I saw a hole open in the ground, I'm paraphrasing, and I saw coming out of the ground bottomless pit. One translation says abyss, same thing. Bottomless pit is a compartment of hell. You know why I said compartment? Hell does have compartments. It has some places where the more wicked go. It has some places where the less unsaved, the less wicked rather, go. That would be, well, if I get into that, I'd never finish. There are degrees in hell and degrees in heaven. In heaven, some rule over 5 cities. In heaven, some rule over 10 cities, or in the kingdom age of 1,000 years. In hell, some go to a certain compartment of hell. In hell, all right, but a certain compartment. That makes it more easy for me to believe that some heathens can go to hell. Somebody said they go to hell because they rejected Christ. No, they never heard of him. They go to hell because they sin. And as by one man sin into the world, and death by sin, so death passed upon all men, for all have sinned. All have come short of the glory of God. Romans 5:12. And then the book of Romans again, all have come short of the glory of God. There's not a just man upon the earth that doeth good and sinneth not. So men go to hell because they sin, regardless of rejection or otherwise. So here is a hole in the ground near the river Euphrates. Now I know that's pronounced Euphrates by some, and there is a question about it, and I want you to know that I know it. Euphrates River, it's about 1,800 miles long, one of the longest rivers in the world, and has a great history about it. And the plague lasts 5 months. Locusts come out of the pit, out of a hole in the ground. It would be better for us. I don't know that hell's underneath. I'm not teaching that because I do not know. But I'm saying that they come out of the ground, at least, out of the pit, the bottomless pit. It does seem to be an indication, but I will not push it any way in the world. I do not know where hell is. The smoke arose out of the bottomless pit. Here comes the smoke. And out of the smoke come these things. And you might think they were infernal creatures from hell, but they're not. The Greek says armies, A-R-M-I-E-S. We have army in our Bible, but it says armies in the original. So these are armies, my. If I stopped to count them up, I'd count up the Jew-hating nations. I'd count up the nations that are for Russia. I'd count up all that are against God and mix them all together and shake the sack and see how many comes out. Because if I start naming them, there's no end to it. Over in the East right now, the nations that hate Israel, my, how many nations there are. They ought not to hate Israel. Israel owns that land by title, by the fiat of God. God gave it to Abraham, and until this day it is the land that God gave to the seed of Abraham, which is Jews. And I don't know which way it's going to go right away. I don't know what's going to happen in the East right away, but I do know that in the millennial kingdom, that land will be restored to the Jew. I'm talking about the nation of Israel. And whereas now it's less than 200 miles square, then it will be like it was long, long ago, about 1,000 miles across, and will belong then, during the 1,000-year reign of Christ on earth with the saints. It belonged to the Jews, and they will live there and have their farms there and their pomegranates there and their wheat there and whatever. I'm talking about earthly Jews, living Jews like we are men and women. Ready? And the smoke came out of the pit and darkened the air and darkened the sun, so that the sun shone not. That seems to be universal. You darken the sun completely over here, and it might not shine over there, and vice versa. I'm telling you that we're getting so near to the middle of the tribulation period that this could be in the middle of the tribulation period. Watch what I'm saying. I'm guarding myself. The tribulation period begins, or the middle of the tribulation period begins, in the 11th chapter of the book of Revelation in verse 3. Moses and Elijah come on the scene, and they are to prophesy, preach, work miracles for 42 months, 3 years and a half. From the time they come on the scene, Moses and Elijah, the two prophets, until just before Christ comes in glory at the second phase of his coming. Then they are caught up to heaven and then come back with Christ and all of the glorified, redeemed saints to reign on earth with Christ 1,000 years. Back to this. And these things come out of the pit, but I'm telling you that it's a prelude to Armageddon. Some people think that Armageddon, when it's fought, they will just instantly gather together in the valley of Mount Gado, and instantly they will start fighting. That is not Bible. That isn't what the Bible says. The Bible says that the Battle of Armageddon will start at Jerusalem. Did you get it? That's Zechariah chapter 14, verse 1 and 2. And Jerusalem will be a time of trembling of the cup. Jerusalem shall be a cup of trembling in that day. When I get to the Battle of Armageddon, I'll show you that it will transpire in one day, the battle itself. But this seems to be a starting of it, a beginning of it, where a lot of people are killed, and it could well be an invasion of Israel by Russia and her satellites. It could well be. Watch my wording. I do not know. But Russia must be made immobile before the Antichrist can assume world power. And the Antichrist is already on the scene. We found that out last night. The rapture takes place in chapter 4. The Antichrist is revealed in chapter 6 and verse 1 and 2. Immediately after the rapture, the Antichrist comes, or at least appears upon the scene. He doesn't come from anywhere. He'll be a man like any other man, and will live here on earth before he appears as the Antichrist. And the world need not know that he's the Antichrist when he first appears. He goes forth conquering and to conquer, conquering and to conquer, conquer and to conquer, until he has conquered the world. But he couldn't do that with a mighty power like Russia in the saddle. And they do have more potential right now than we have. I'll not discuss that, but that's true. But I'm saying that sometime, Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39, sometime before now, and the Battle of Armageddon, Russia must be made immobile, must be made where they cannot fight, and you'll find that in the 38th and 39th chapter of Ezekiel. You know why that Israel will whip Russia? They will. You know why? God will send fire and brimstone and hail and thunder and rain and whatever. All of that is in the 38th chapter of the book of Ezekiel and verse 52. A miracle from God just coming down, not the Battle of Armageddon proper, but Russia made immobile, and God will make for them a grave in the land of Israel, and thousands upon thousands upon thousands of Russians, with that great army they have and all the technique that they know and all the modern instruments, God shall make them immobile like that, instantly, by judgment from God himself. And I'm sure that the Israelites will be fighting Russia and her allies, but I'm saying that the 38th and 39th chapter of Ezekiel talks about a battle that's yet to take place. Whatever battle it is, that may be the next battle. And it could well be that this is the beginning of Armageddon, and still could be the battle of Ezekiel 38 and 39, and would fit very, very well into prophecy, because the Antichrist must assume world power, and he could not do it if Russia is left all through the 7-year tribulation period having as much power as she has tonight. It'd be impossible for the Antichrist to gain world dominion. So however it may be, Russia must be made immobile. Everybody get it. Russia must be made immobile between now and the Antichrist coming to assume world power, so no man can buy and no man can sell unless they have the mark of the beast, that is, the Antichrist. I don't know why it's called the beast except for his characteristics. Characteristics. Beast, like a beast. Ready? And the ones that's over this army, and it is a physical army, and will be men in physical bodies, and they'll have something like helicopters, and shoot from the front and shoot from the back. Wish I had time to explain that one. It's all in this chapter. Their tails should be full of fire, their heads should be full of fire, a prelude to Armageddon. And they have a king over them, over the battle. And he is the king of the bottomless pit. That's verse 11, chapter 9. And he is Satan. Satan is his name now, since we think he used to be named Lucifer. Since his fall, we believe he was Satan. Jesus said, I saw Satan fall from heaven. Jesus said that. Oh, how long that must have been ago. I saw Satan fall. Well, I just quoted to you the Greek. I saw an angel fallen, past tense, already fallen. How many thousands and thousands of years ago? I wouldn't know. I wouldn't even know how many thousands or whatever. But a long, long time ago. Now, I know Adam was the first man on this earth. I understand that. That's in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. I can't go in detail like that and never get through. So much comes to me when I'm teaching till it just swamps under. Ready? And he's the angel of the bottomless pit. I don't know why the artist that drew that, she's a good artist, I don't know why she put wings on the devil. I thought I'd just put that in to make you understand that I didn't do that. As far as we know, the devil does not have wings. If he does, he might have wings, I don't know. He's called the Red Dragon. That's the 12th chapter of the book of Revelation in verse 2 and 3. The Red Dragon. Dragon was a fish. Shall I call him a fish? A terrible marine creature, panoplied with little horns and claws, and lived in the marshes in the days that Revelation was written. A terrible, terrible animal. The devil is compared to that, dragon. And the people that read Dragon 1900 years ago when Revelation was written, we think John was about 70 years old when he wrote it, and he was on the Isle of Patmos and very lonely. I can go back into that. And the devil is the king over this army. And he is later taken and cast into hell alive. That's 1925, Revelation. And the false prophet is cast into hell alive, same reference. Not here, not at this point and this juncture on my chart and time-wise. And I'm on verse 4. There's 144,000 Jews. We found that out in chapter 7 in verse 1, 2, and 3. Ready? Here I just put a few Jews, the picture of a few Jews. I drew all of these pictures, and I couldn't draw a horse. I'd have to put under it, this is a horse. But I drew every mark right flat of my tummy on a floor 24 feet long, and drew all the marks, put in all the letters, drew the Antichrist, here we go. This is 144,000 Jews, and I told you this in chapter 7, verse 1, 2, and 3. And back there they are sealed, we found out, with a seal of the living God. Ready? Now in 9 verse 4, here they are. They're still sealed. Whatever the seal is, I don't know. Nobody else knows. But they're sealed with whatever it is that physically protects them from death or from any curse upon any of these things that are happening. Even the devil himself cannot touch him. They are physically preserved in life and live and live and live. Watch. They are alive in chapter 7. They are sealed in chapter 7, and it's not salvation. We take it they were already saved. Ready? They're sealed in chapter 7, verse 1, 2, and 3, evidently by Christ, the mighty angel. And in 9:4, I'm on that now, they are still alive. Watch. And all men, that's generic, men and women, all men on earth will be subjected to the sting of locusts except these 144,000 men. I hope you didn't miss it. Somebody said to me lately, I don't understand why that the Jews, 144,000, would not be subjected. Well, I don't care whether you understand it or not, it's so, and it's in the Bible. And besides, Fox's Books of the Martyrs and Paul's 11th chapter of Hebrews, it's always been true that God's people had to suffer. God never did promise God's people wouldn't suffer. He always promised, I will go with them through the suffering, but he never did promise that just because you're saved, you won't have any trouble. There won't be any suffering. I will not put upon you that which you're not able to bear, but with every temptation or trial, I will make a way of escape. So all the saints of God in all ages have been subjected to trouble and sorrow and tribulation, not this tribulation of 7 years, but tribulation and sorrow of different times and different era to this one. So here they are sealed, that's 9:4, still living. Watch. They're in 14 and chapter 1 again. How about that? They're still living. They're still sealed, except over there, They're sealed with their Father's name. You know now they're Jews. I don't know whether the name will go across the part. I don't know whether it'll be visible or not. It seems to be visible, but I wouldn't push it. I don't know. See, I don't mind saying I don't know. Wherever these are shown, I want to be big enough, bold enough, and truthful enough, and honest enough to say, I don't know. There's some things not revealed in the Bible. I don't know. I don't know what will happen with the physical saints that are living at the end of the kingdom age. And you don't either, because it's not revealed in the Bible. It's not revealed in the New Testament. I wonder what will happen to them. The physical people that are saved at the end of the kingdom age says nothing about a resurrection for them. Says nothing about them being transferred up to heaven instantly, or I might say a rapture or a translation. So I don't know. There's a lot of things that are not answered in Revelation that you would like to know. And there's so many preachers, God bless preachers. I don't have to defend that. But they try to find something new, and sure enough they do find something new sometimes. It's absolutely pitiful what one fellow said lately over the radio. If a third of the men of the world are not killed by this time next year, mark my name off of the list. If I'd had the list, I'd just mark his name off now, because I know what I've got on the hook. You understand? It's pitiful. He needs to be prayed for. He's my brother in Christ. I love him in the Lord. But such statement as that makes my teaching cheap. Makes every other fellow's teaching cheap that runs off on a tangent and sets a date and this way and that way and this way and that way. Ready? So in the 14th chapter, they do not defile themselves with women. That's spiritual. It has nothing to do with sex. That's spiritual fornication. I'll get to it later. I put it in now. You'll be ready. When I get there, you'll be ready to accept it. Spiritual fornication. It's the Mystery Babylon false church, the hodgepodge church of the tribulation period that has people belonging to it that believe in salvation by works, that were left at the rapture, and they form into what you might call a church, and they're called Mystery Babylon. They're called the harlots. I'll have to go on, back to my subject. Here is the war on earth preparatory to Armageddon, ready. And the sixth angel sounded, and I saw 4 angels. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 angels. I do better without that stick. I make gestures at you, and you think I'm hitting. I think I'm hitting at you. Here is 4 angels. Watch. And they're good angels. They are obedient angels. They're God's angels. They run errands for God. That's often true in the Bible. In this case, they're put over the Euphrates River, whether to let it flow full tide or whether to dry it up. And they're put there for that purpose. Ultimately, the river of the Euphrates is dried up so that the kings of the east, that would be China and so on, can come over for the Battle of Armageddon, dry shod, when the Euphrates dries up. This is not the place for it here. You see how I get ahead of myself. There's an angel, 2, 3, 4, 4 angels. And I heard a voice from the golden altar up in heaven saying, loose the 4 angels which are at the river Euphrates. We're in the tribulation period now. Ready? And the 4 angels, obeying the voice that comes from God's throne, walks over to loose the angels, and I hear a voice say, let them be bound for a month and a day and a year. In other words, around 13 months. And it don't mean 13 months at all. It means at a certain given point, they'll be loosed. Oh, I hope you didn't miss that. They are bound there. They cannot do anything. They're kept from bringing judgment there. And they're bound for an hour and a day and a month and a year. That's about 13 months. But that isn't what it means. It means they're bound for a certain definite second Then they'll loose the armies to come rushing over. I hope you got it. Not 13 months. I saw a commentary lately had that in it. God bless the commentary and God bless the author. I'm a gentleman. I don't jump on anybody. I don't fight denominations. I preach the gospel. That's what I'm called to preach, and that's what the Bible says, preach. Ready? So here, they come over, war on earth, preparatory to Armageddon. This scene and that scene are the same thing. This is not the Battle of Armageddon. This black line shouldn't be here. Everything above the black line is a heavenly scene, either in the atmosphere above the ground or up in the third heaven where God's throne is. But take the black line out and just go right on with the scene, except you do have the sixth angel, and I guess it's all right to have the black mark. The sixth angel sounds, and horns of power, and a voice, and the angel loose the four angels which are bound at the great river Euphrates. Time has come to loose them. Time is coming to a moment and an hour and a day and a month and a year. Loose them. That is, turn them loose. Let them go ahead with their judgment. And they loose their judgments. And such a battle as you have never heard of in the world except Armageddon, this is not Armageddon, happens right there. And by the smoke, and by the fire, and by the belching of fire out of their mouth, that is the front of the airplane or whatever, or the tail of the airplane, whatever, shall men be killed, like I said, with 1,000, but that word is not there. And that is preparatory to Armageddon. So what I'm saying to you is that these are four angels cause horsemen to slay 1/3 part of men by fire and by smoke and by brimstone, which issued out of their mouth. That is, out of the front of the engine, out of the helicopter, glorified helicopter, whatever, shooting this way and shooting that way and belching with fire. And this battle here must happen between now and the Battle of Armageddon. It must happen between now and the coming of Christ in glory with all of his saints in chapter 19 and verse 11. It must. So Russia will be immobile. Ready? And I'll go to chapter 10 right here. And I saw a mighty angel up in heaven. I'm paraphrasing. I saw, John said, a mighty angel up in heaven. And he was clothed with a cloud. Look at that picture. And his feet was clothed like fire. Not fire, but likened unto fire. Illumination, bright, shining, glorious. That's the person of Christ. Since he's been glorified from the resurrection, we don't know exactly how he looks. We don't even know how he looked when he was here in the flesh. We have no authentic pictures. I'll leave it right there. Here is Christ in chapter 10, and he comes down clothed with a cloud, his feet like they were burned in the fire. That's Calvary. That's suffering. Fire. He went through the judgment of the cross for us. And I can't get into that. I'll go to preaching. Now, ready? And he put his right foot on the sea, and his right foot on the sea, and his left foot upon the earth. And he cried with a loud voice, and roared like a lion roareth. My, Christ sometimes is called a lion. Terrible in judgment, yet a lamb in mercy. In wrath he shows mercy. What a Christ is this? Who hath so great a God as our God? Psalms 77 and verse 12 and 13. All right, he puts one foot on the land and one foot on the sea. Holds up his hands to heaven because it's going to rain, both in heaven and on earth. And the reason I told you a while ago that this could be a part of the tribulation period is because chapter 10 is a parenthesis. It's put in here to show that Christ is going to reign. And you do see that I was on chapter 9, and I said this could be start the tribulation period. I mean, the last half of it, did I say that? The last half of it could start it. I know that chapter 11, verse 3 starts it. I'll get to it in a moment. Ready? And he comes and puts his feet to reign. Christ shall reign where'er the sun doth his successive journeys run. His kingdom shall shine from shore to shore, till sun and moon shall wane no more. I learned that when I was in the 3rd grade. Christ comes that way. Ready? Ready? I'm changing subjects, and he had a little book in his hand. A little book in his hand. Yes, he does have a little book in his hand. There it is. That probably can't be picked up with a camera. The wonderful cameras and wonderful men have hold of them, but the scroll is too small. I did that. He has a little book in his hand. Now watch how the Bible comes out. Just get a little help on Revelation and you're gone with it. In Revelation chapter 5, I saw a lamb, John talking, I saw a lamb as if he had been slain. Well, he had been, John. He just had been slain a little while ago. I saw a slain lamb, the Son of God, Jesus Christ, a slain lamb, and he had a book in his hand, watch, and the book had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seals. I can't go back over that again. And you had to break each seal before you could read the next seal. I had to break the seal, and like I did the other night, and I can't go back over it, and break the seal and read this much, and then break the seal, and read a little more, and break the seal. And it was sealed, I'm on chapter 5, with 7 seals. Watch. And it was closed. C-L-O-S-E-D. And no man on earth, and no man in heaven, and no man under the earth, or woman either, could open that book. Nobody could break a seal. John began to cry, and if I get on that, I'll review, and we'll be here too late. Chapter 5, it was a sealed book, a shut book. Now, let's go to chapter 10. And I saw a little book open. Same book, book of Revelation, the contents of it. But now so much has come out of it. Look what's come out of it. Those horsemen come out of it that we can't see here, and this come out of it, and that come out of it, and this was fulfilled 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 out of it. And we're way down now to chapter 10, and it's a little book in place of a sealed, shut book. And it's open. Of course it's open. There it is, in place of being sealed. And Christ is the one that had the power to open the book. And all the fish got happy, and all the birds got happy, and everything got happy, and all animate and inanimate nature got happy. And I can't go back over that or I'll shout a tune. Ready? And the book was open and was little. And the angel said to me, there's the angel, and here is John. Pardon me for turning my back to you. Ready? And the angel said to John, come take the little book out of my hand. And John obeyed. John walks up to the Christ angel. By the way, he's called an angel because of his beauty and holiness. He walks up and takes the book out of the hand of the Christ angel. Now, he's more than an angel. He's not a mere angel. He's Christ, the only begotten Son of God that died on the cross to save sinners. Ready? I've gotten the habit of saying ready because I'm going so fast. Now, he takes the little book, and the angel, Christ, says to him, eat the book up. I taught this somewhere lately, and a lady came up and said, I'm just eating the book up. Now, she didn't mean she was eating Revelation up, because I looked and it was still in the Bible. Book of Revelation was still in there, and she hadn't ate the book of Revelation up. But everybody understands what we mean by the term. Assimilate it. Put it into our spiritual system. Digest it. Oh, how I love it. It's part of my life now. And I read it every night. And wife and I talk about it every day and every night. Now, ready? He said, the angel said to John, eat the book up. And John took the book. And I'm going into a figure of speech. I'm going into a metaphor. I'm using a metaphor. I'm using a metaphor. And John took the book and ate it up. Well, when he had eaten it up, it was sweet to his mouth and bitter to his stomach. Now, you've got to have a little help on that. He thought that Christ was coming right there. He had one foot on the land and one foot on the sea, and he thought, this is it. Here he is. He's back. This is his second coming in glory. This is it. And it was sweet to his mouth when he ate the little book of Revelation and thought he had finished up all of Revelation. And you see, John was just getting Revelation little by little. He wasn't getting a whole lot ahead of time. Just little by little it was coming to him, and he was putting it down in his vision. So he didn't know what was going to come next, and he thought that Christ had come right there. He said, that's sweet to my mouth. I'm going to be in the millennial kingdom. Hallelujah, praise the name of the Lord. And then the vision kept on going slowly, and John looked, and he said, oh, Christ is not coming now. There's going to be some more of the book of Revelation. And I've got to go ahead and write the rest of it. That's bitter to my stomach. That ought to be all I can do and all I can say. We're going to take a moment now and put new scenery before you. You've been wonderful. God bless you and God love you. Thank you. Back in a moment.